Hello and welcome. Here we are, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, with a loss to the Houston Texans. That means a lot. 3-5, and boy, 3-5. I said in my articles on Bucs Nation this week, there's a huge difference between 3-5 and 4-4, and this would be a defining game for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers season because of the fact that it was a game that the Houston Texans wanted to win. Obviously, every team wants to win, and they're an up-and-coming team, young bunch, good young quarterback, new head coach, new era. They want to win. But it was a game that the Buccaneers needed to win. To fall to 3-5, when you've got an offensive coordinator who's trying to establish himself in the National Football League, you've got a quarterback who's trying to save basically his legacy in the National Football League, and then you have a head coach who is so close to he's so close to having to sit down and talk to his children about switching schools. He's got butt cheeks on a heated seat. And this was a winnable game. Before the game, it was a winnable game because it was a winnable opponent. And during the game, it was a winnable game. Right up until the end, this was a winnable game. So this was going to be a defining game for the Buccaneers because it was a game that you needed. And the team you were up against didn't really need it. They wanted it, but they didn't need it. The desperation of the Buccaneers should have been enough to pull them to victory today. It was not. A lot of things went into the loss. Definitely not the way I saw the game happening, just in terms of points scored and like the final result. I definitely was surprised to see such a high-scoring game. Over 60 total points was not where I anticipated this going. C.J. Stroud sets the rookie record for yards passing in a game. Bravo to him. 5 touchdowns, no picks. Obviously looked great. Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, I mean, boy. Relatively healthy. Jamel Dean goes out, but that's one player. That was a really tough showing. The Bucs defense had been like in a weird zone of being statistically okay, but not really that great over the last few games this season. And then today it kind of all hit the fan. They were not good at all. At all. And unfortunately for, people really hoping that you could see the Buccaneers pull out a win today, the Bucs offense was. Baker Mayfield, Tampa Bay, they got rolling a little bit. The run game came to life. They had much more pop in the run game than we have seen in weeks past. Pass game, Mike Evans got a deep ball. That's always fun. You saw Cade Otton get in the end zone 2 times. Baker Mayfield with no, glaring mistakes, no interceptions, no fumbles. Had a couple nice, plays where he was able to extend and, get out of the pocket, move a little bit, make some nice plays downfield. Offense looked good. You see growth, right? Progression. See them kind of fix some issues and address them. And the offensive line looked better. Holding penalty on Gadecki. And some general debauchery, but comparable to what had been the product that they were putting on the field. The offensive line showed improvement. Tampa Bay's offense looks solid. Defensively, all of the issues, or the equivalent of the issues that the offense had been putting out on the field, the defense said, "Oh, you clean that up, we'll take on that mess." Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense just awful, and really, I'm going to say, Levante David made a couple plays. Antoine Winfield Jr. made a couple plays, here and there. But ultimately, Shaq Barrett did get a strip sack. Fortunately, the Texans did recover it. But it's gotten so bad, and it's hard to, a lot of people, Todd Bowles is low-hanging fruit. But sometimes, just because something is low-hanging fruit doesn't mean it's not what should be discussed. Todd Bowles, even if you give him a pass for last season because he got is a weird circumstance, right? Hired way later than any other coach because he just kind of got gifted the job. Then he couldn't do anything with he couldn't get his own offensive coordinator in there because Byron Leftwich was already entrenched. Okay, fine. You had Tom Brady, who was greatest quarterback of all time, yes, but he was kind of like 1 foot out the door, kind of a murky situation there. Okay. Clean slate coming into this season. You hired your own offensive coordinator. You went out and got an opportunity to, draft a quarterback, if you wanted to go that route, or, have Kyle Trask compete against a veteran. You got a veteran. You took that veteran, you gave him the job over Kyle Trask. Okay, that's fine. That veteran quarterback played well today. This season is very much on Todd Bowles. And this game is really damning for the Todd Bowles into 2024 conversation, because you can't be the reason. It's one thing when your team loses and you have guys underperforming, right? The Buccaneers under Todd Bowles for these 2 years have been an over-talented, underachieving team. A lot of talent. It's not coming to fruition, right? Last year, there were lots of players that have made lots of plays in the National Football League on that team. They couldn't make anything happen with those players. That's coaching. This year, different quarterback, different offensive coordinator, some different faces, still a lot of talent. And they're underachieving. That's coaching. And there's a common denominator there, just one. And at a certain point, you can't let all that happen and then yourself be the problem. And Todd Bowles today, his defense, no matter how good, and C.J. Stroud could go on to be a Hall of Famer, no matter how good C.J. Stroud turns out to be, you can't let a man have 5 touchdown passes with 0 interceptions and 470 yards passing against you. Coupled into that, you let up a 40-second 2-minute drill to lose the game. And not even a 2-minute drill where they needed a field goal. A 2-minute drill where the Houston Texans had to drive all the way down the field and got a touchdown. That just can't happen. And that's on the coach. And if you watched his postgame, and this drives me crazy when anybody does this, but you watch his postgame and he was asked, do you regret some of the calls you made on the last drive? Do you look back on it with 20/20 hindsight and say, I should have called this instead of that? And he said no. If we did what we were supposed to do, the calls were correct. That's not a good way to think, because now you're just pointing the finger at your players. And even if that's true, right? Even if you called perfect plays, you're just, boom, chef's kisses, right? You nailed your play calls. No coach, no leader of any sort should stand there and say, well, it's not me, it's the other people. Because that's not what a leader does. That's not good, right? That causes dissension. That makes people not like you. Nobody wants to hear, oh, it's my fault that we didn't win, right? A leader takes the onus, takes the blame, throws it on his shoulders. So Todd Bowles, it's a shame, because Todd Bowles' legacy in Tampa Bay could have been something special. If we take a minute back, what Todd Bowles did in 2020 for the playoff run for the Buccaneers and then in the Super Bowl against Patrick Mahomes was one of the most special sequences of defensive performances that I've ever seen. And the gauntlet of Drew Brees to Aaron Rodgers to Pat Mahomes, and that Super Bowl in particular, that could have been his legacy in Tampa Bay. And he would have been never buying a drink in Tampa again, to steal a phrase, because of that stretch of games. And then the defense obviously being good, in the following years of the Tom Brady era and all that stuff. Because of how this season, coupled with last season, but because of how this season has gone, that's the furthest thing from anyone's mind. And that's a shame. It's unfortunate. But, the truth hurts sometimes. And the truth is, Todd Bowles is just not the guy. And he's not the guy for any reason other than he's just not. It's not bias. It's not anger. It's not, there's a lot of frustrated fans just screaming, fire Todd, and all of these things. But it's not that. It's not a gut reaction. It's just, it's okay. Like, some people just are really good at certain things and not good at other things. Todd Bowles is not cut out to be a head coach. It's a shame. But some people just aren't. And just because you're a good coordinator and a good defensive play caller doesn't mean you're naturally going to be a good head coach. It just doesn't. And his skills have not carried over. And I do believe ultimately at the end of the season, I don't think, barring a total collapse, I don't think the Buccaneers will let Todd Bowles go mid-season. but I do believe that this will be his last season coaching the team. And it's a shame because of what his legacy could have been. Could have been. It was right there. Unfortunately, he will not go down that way in Tampa Bay. He will go down as a GOAT, and not as a GOAT as in G.O.A.T. A GOAT as in the negative term. And it's a shame because of what could have been. But that's got to wrap up this video. It's kind of a solemn, like, reflective video because, this was a defining game for the Buccaneers, and they defined themselves. And okay, now anyone watching this team moving forward, whether you're covering the team or rooting as a fan, you know what this team is. There is no questions moving forward about maybe this or we could have, this, none of that. It is understood from this point in time on through where the Buccaneers are and what they are. And it's nice to get a little bit of that clarity. Sometimes clarity hurts, but it is nice to get it. And, you could start emotionally, like, understanding, week to week where the Buccaneers are at. That being said, next week, Titans, Derrick Henry, Will Levis.